Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics FPL. It's Fran here, and I'm back with my Gameweek 12 team selection. Now, this game week was actually quite a difficult week because I think there was a crossroads in a sense for me to actually move away from Sanchez. Of course, when you're actually staring at my bench, you'll notice that I have Steele in my bench, and the reason why I've actually still gone for a -4 is because I think there is a crossroads here in terms of actually picking a kind of differential keeper for the remainder of the season and until my next wild card, basically, where I think Guaita actually is probably the more underrated keepers right now, just because of the fact that I think Crystal Palace's defense have performed exceptionally well. I think, of course, in terms of form, individual keepers, Ramsdale is clearly the best keeper, but I don't have the ability to go for Ramsdale right now. And for the foreseeable future, he is kind of out of my grasp. I can also, on the other hand, probably make a move away from Sanchez because Sanchez has, in a sense, probably let me down slightly. And I think the defensive metrics actually much more favor a team like Crystal Palace, who have had the kind of top three difficulty in terms of fixtures so far. And the fact that they've actually come out of that as a very strong mid-table team who've actually dropped points and dropped clean sheets, in the dying moments of some games, the Brighton game being kind of a key example of that, tells me that I think that the Crystal Palace results will actually look to go on the up, and Guaita will be someone who benefits greatly from that. On the other hand, I think McCarthy is a very logical option for a lot of peak players, but for me, McCarthy didn't make too much sense because I already have Livermore on my team, and not only that, I didn't really want to keep Sanchez just because of the fact that really I think from the eye test he's hurt me quite a bit, and I think he's more susceptible to kind of creating goals and loose goals for this Brighton side than most. I think the Man City game and his kind of and his assist in a sense to Bernardo Silva being a key kind of example of that. I think that yes, even though the Brighton defense is also quite good and we've seen underlying stats wise are relatively solid, I think the fact that Crystal Palace are performing so well after this kind of fixture run and still being top four in terms of expected goals allowed tells me that I think Guaita will definitely look to net me some more points. And I see him as more of a kind of medium to long-term pick that will probably hopefully net me more points than Sanchez, even though I'm taking -4 for him. And the reason why I'm taking -4 is because I have to kind of rectify another mistake, which was actually not going for Cancelo soon enough. Of course, the Cancelo kind of escape didn't really make or didn't really last as well as I would have hoped. I wanted to go for Cancelo this week regardless, if you kind of watched my game week review 2 weeks ago. But he managed to actually bag a fantastic haul versus United, which was extremely deserved off of his triple assist haul versus Club Brugge. And Cancelo's in fantastic form right now. I think Pep sees him pretty much as a talismanic player and someone who is quintessential to actually unlocking most defenses right now. And I think he's kind of that additional midfield piece, similar to kind of the way we envision the Chelsea fullbacks or someone like Trent so far, from an attacking point of view, that will provide great dividends for the rest of the season. And I can't really escape a Man City clean sheet at this point in time. So Cancelo has to find his way back to my team. And if there was any fixture where I was going to drop Sanchez, it was probably going to be this one, even though I have Steele on the bench. Otherwise, I don't really see an opportunity in the near future to go away from Sanchez. It's also a great kind of fixture swing for Palace, in my opinion. Yes, they of course had a great upset win versus City. But beyond that, I think, right now is the time to capitalize on these kind of really nice Palace fixtures up until Game Week 20. And that's why I have these kind of two transfer decisions made. When we actually look elsewhere to my team, I think the actual dilemma for this week is as follows. But just before I actually go into that, I would love to shout out OneFootball. OneFootball is a fantastic football app that you can actually use as a football fan for iPhone and Android users to stay up to date with the world of football. You can track favorite leagues, favorite teams, make sure you sort, your kind of football preferences and news updates and notifications to whatever you like as a football fan. You can make sure that you track, things like injuries, game week previews, press conferences, any kind of reveals as well in terms of, transfer news and things like that. When it comes to kind of following matches live, you can also do that. Have access to instant live stats, have access to live tickers and kind of summaries and commentaries of games, and get a feedback of, how well players have done retrospectively as well by looking at kind of stats, and also, formations and things like that. So please check out the app in the link in the description below. I think it's a fantastic app to use to make sure that you kind of stay up to date with football, even if you're not actively watching games. So please check it out. When I go back to my team, though, as I say, I think the main kind of deliberation for me was really, whether I go for someone like Raphinha or Benrahma this week. I think Benrahma clearly is juxtaposed to Raphinha in the sense because Benrahma, I think in the Premier League has been quite out of form as of late. Of course, he looked quite interesting versus Liverpool. I think naturally Liverpool's defense didn't look the best versus West Ham on that occasion. They were mostly crumbled by these kind of set piece attacks by West Ham. But at the same time, I think in the last two games we've seen them kind of be overwhelmed in the midfield, right? With Brighton, for example, being a key kind of example of that, and then also West Ham doing quite well with the kind of pairing up of the usual kind of front three behind Antonio and Bowen, Fornals, and Benrahma. For me, what I would say is that Benrahma clearly is out of form, but I think the fixture is more beneficial to him in the sense that he gets to play Wolves. For Raphinha, though, it's a real deliberation between whether I think Tottenham are going to do well this week, and I think Tottenham looked quite solid, I think, defensively last week, but it really comes down to the fact that Everton didn't challenge them at all. Meanwhile, when I contrast that to, for example, the Vitesse game, when they were playing the European Conference League, I wasn't really enamored with their defense whatsoever in terms of actually looking at defensive assets or even kind of, being interested in how well they kind of orchestrate and play around as a back five right now. We also see, for example, that this is probably going to be a trial phase where he's going to be rotating players in the back line. Ben Davies is someone who's been trialed as well. There might be constant rotation in terms of this back five right now. And for me, that doesn't really color too well for whether or not I wanted to put Raphinha in my bench, right? Raphinha, on the other hand, as well, has been in exceptional form lately. Someone who has done tremendously well in fixtures where we didn't expect him to do well. Leicester is a game where I actually wanted to keep in my team, and I did, and he did manage another great haul. But I think the thing as well with Raphinha is that arguably some people could say that his hauls have been a little bit lucky. Some of these intended crosses that he's been going for this season have actually netted into 2 goals, one being in the West Ham game and then another one kind of being in that Leicester game. For me, though, I still think Raphinha is that kind of talismanic player for Leeds, and whether or not Leeds have the ability to actually play better is something I don't necessarily have the answer to right now. They are playing, I think, considerably worse than the previous year, especially in their inability to kind of retain the ball in the midfield and actually provide kind of consistent counterattacks. I think definitely losing the kind of outlet of Bamford as well and his kind of ability to press from the front foot has been missed for the team. And I think even Dallas's, kind of ability to create in the midfield and provide a physical presence there has been missed as well in some parts. And I think for now, though, I'd still love to probably keep Raphinha just due to the factor of form. It's obviously a little bit of a safer player as well, way due to the kind of effective ownership and how that works. But that is my general play this week. I will probably play Raphinha over Benrahma. If I was to play Benrahma, though, of course, it would be a much more, in a sense, greedier play due to the effective ownership. But it could actually make sense because of the differential that he actually probably is right now, right? A lot of people have dipped out of Benrahma in recent weeks, and it makes considerable sense because he, of course, has tough fixtures coming. We have the City game where I think, if anyone was to really haul there, I'd probably expect it to be, once again, one of the big men in the back or Antonio, right? Because that's definitely going to be a considerable weakness of City, from the set pieces. For me, though, I think, it's going to be Raphinha at the end of the day. Please let me know what you guys think I would like to play this week in terms of Raphinha Benrahma. For the team selection going forwards, though, I think that the reason why I've actually stuck with this kind of front three in terms of Kane is just because the simple pivot to Ronaldo. I think it keeps things simple in my head, especially as I don't have a wild card chip, right? There's no kind of real need to take constant -4 hits over the course of the season. This would be my second one of the season so far, and it's not something I want to do, on a weekly basis. Actually, sorry, this would be my third one. And for the most part, it's, I think, paid off because one of them was, a kind of net rating of kind of -2 where I kind of got Chilwell in, and I'm pretty happy that I got Chilwell. I think that he will kind of even out with James over the course of the season. Of course, the last few weeks have been very, very hard as a non-James owner, but I think Chilwell will perform exceedingly well over the course of the year, especially since Alonso is out as well, and we've already seen that he has the ability to haul, in fantastic games. And another thing too, with the way that I have my team orchestrated is that I think keeping Antonio makes sense because I have had stored so much value within him, and I think he's still, when we actually look at, for example, metrics and how interesting he is as an asset, is definitely probably still one of the better options over the course of the year. When that kind of fixture congestion happens, in December is maybe another question. I have to kind of revisit whether Antonio makes sense. He still holds a spot in my team. And of course, I'm still trusting in Tony in the ability to hopefully haul in one of these easier fixtures, right? With Tony, as I mentioned before in the past, I think he probably is someone who I'm going to leverage in terms of upgrading my midfield in the near future, or at least, having the ability to downgrade to someone like Hwang at the very least so that I can free up some cash to maybe make some other moves elsewhere, right? Raphinha is someone also to kind of, I think, take consideration of as well, just because of the kind of Leeds fixtures. If you actually look at, for example, Leeds' fixtures over the next few weeks, I think they are gradually worsening. And even though he is such a pivotal player and someone who I might even say is a world class player, is probably going to struggle in those fixtures in those tougher games. And Leeds have actually had a relatively easy schedule so far, in my opinion, compared to most. Whereas, someone like Benrahma is definitely going to go as well. He probably is going to be paired off in a roll transfer in the future, where hopefully if I get to roll the transfer in the subsequent week, I can probably move away Benrahma and Raphinha, or Benrahma and Tony, in kind of one swoop, where I probably get an upgrade of Jota, right? Because after the Arsenal fixture, I think Jota already makes sense. I would arguably have already missed the Southampton fixture due to the rolling the fixture. But, depending on what the injury update is on Firmino and Mane, Jota makes a lot of sense for me, I think, going forwards. And I think having him means that I will be kind of paired up quite well with other kind of owners who will probably be benefiting and trying to capitalize on the fact that Jota is going to be playing for one of the best attacks in the Premier League, at such an efficient price. So that's pretty much how I see things right now. Foden is someone who I'd love to keep for the long term, because even though the fixtures are arguably a little bit middling right now, I think Foden is still a key piece, especially with Torres still being out, and I think Guardiola kind of preferring to play De Bruyne in a much more deeper position this season, and also actually resting De Bruyne a little bit more so that he can probably be utilized in the better fixtures and actually find some sort of form and fitness over the course of the kind of later stages of the season. Foden, I think, is someone who I think he sees has the kind of energy and the vibrance to actually play consistently, and game week 15 plus, I think Man City have fantastic games. So the goal at that point is really just to save enough money so that I can make a simple transfer between Kane and Ronaldo at that point in time, depending on what I move in terms of Raphinha, Benrahma, and Tony. But that's it for now, guys, for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week ahead.